Hey guys, what's going on? It's Brady from Lee Weather Forecast, and tonight we're going to be talking about tropical storm Cristobal, update number 3, and not the last one, but we're approaching some of the last ones. I'll probably do some more ones that moves inland, just because it's still going to be making some pretty big impacts in the Midwest, so I might do something for that. But for now, I'm going to just focus on the Gulf Coast because that's where the attention needs to be right now. Because Florida got hammered today. Absolutely hammered. I mean, there was rainfall totals 8 to 12 inches across the state. And then some isolated more, like some of those 8 to 12 inch totals were more isolated, but there was a widespread, I'd say 4 to 8 inches of rain in many spots across the state. Not necessarily in every location, but there was a lot of activity going on in Florida today. So we'll start off. I think Storm Protection Center is going to put down a tornado watch for West Florida coast. They've indicated that supercell development is imminent, and it's happening already. We saw a tornado warning recently in South Venice, Florida, and if I remember correctly, I think it's still in place. I don't think it's expired yet, so it's interesting. But we're just gonna play this out. Let me do that first. I forgot to put on Do Not Disturb while I do this, but whatever. Played out. We'll see the NAM. I think the NAM's got a decent idea. It's missing out on the Florida precipitation, I will say that. But I think, if a model's missing on other parts, then you probably shouldn't listen to it for the most part. But when I see this, I mean, I can't just ignore the amount of precipitation the NAM is putting down in southeast Louisiana. I mean, that's a legit one. And even moving into western Mississippi, look at that. I mean, that's just consistent. 2-3 inch per hour rainfall rates for multiple hours. So you can't just ignore it. And then look at the line on the backside. I mean, that spells severe weather from a distance. I mean, that's interesting. That could definitely lead for some big severe weather. This is the first time I've looked at the NAM tonight, so we're gonna see how this plays out. And we're gonna go to wind speed. Wrong one. Here we go. And loading. That's fine. Alright, we'll see NAM depicts. Not many models are insistent on putting it more than a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. But the bottom line is, let's take a look. I mean, maybe max wind speeds here on the NAM model. Nah. Or what? 36 knots, maybe? I mean, this is a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. And when the NAM put this out, so that's why you have to take it with a grain of salt, of course. If they don't have the current conditions correctly input into the models, that's always concerning. But I mean, the 10-meter wind speeds are just down. They've been down the whole event, and they just haven't been quite accurate in all of the models I've noticed. So that's one thing you have to realize, and I'm really concerned about that East Louisiana coast. Notice how the reds kind of work their way in there. Those are some of your 45 knot 10-meter wind speeds that will be working their way over land, and that's really concerning on the southeast Louisiana coast. It's very, very concerning. And to places like Gulfport and Biloxi too, those winds will be working their way in, and that's quite concerning. So I'm going to shift a little bit, go into windy for the wind gusts now. And we zoom through to 5 a.m. on windy. That's when we start seeing, I think, this is when our tropical storm force winds. There was a band I was talking about in Florida that was happening. That was really, really, that was going to be the first round of tropical storm force winds that I was noticing. There was a swath of precip all the way from Places like Crestview to Panama City to even West Tallahassee metro area. I was talking about was bringing the first wave of wind gusts, potentially 40 plus miles an hour, even maybe 50-mile-an-hour gusts. And that was the first wave of tropical storm force winds for the Florida coast. And now we play through this. I mean, this is 8 a.m. I think the right idea on wind gusts is fairly amount there. Wind gusts currently, I think, are 65 miles an hour with Cristobal, so play it out. I gotta imagine maybe 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts could be the cap here. 85-mile-an-hour wind gusts are the cap for this storm. I don't think we're gonna see anything higher than that. 80-mile-an-hour gusts, per around, say 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm at landfall. Because I am leaning on the stronger side, given those warmer sea surface temperatures right at the coast. Let's talk about that. Go into Tracker. Hurricane Tracker is a great app. If you don't have it, I would recommend getting it because it has all the great things you need to really track hurricanes. That's what the app is called. But it's really important if you are into hurricanes and tracking hurricanes that you have this app. Has all satellite data, ocean temps, model runs, great stuff, a lot of great stuff. So I don't want to be here, but I'll go back up to the Gulf. Here's the Gulf of Mexico. Look at those sea surface temperatures. See how we got our blues. Our blues are 27 degrees Celsius temps, I think. Yeah, 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. And even some of the purples you see where Cristobal was working with. But once it gets to the coast, I'm not really concerned about those three spaces there because a little less dry air is now starting to work its way a little bit. Cristobal's starting to make its own moisture basically a little bit. On the west side, there's not really any precipitation, but it's trying to drive out some of that dry air, and it's been a very lopsided storm, which is less of tropical characteristics, but has really been tropical characteristics have really been increasing in Cristobal over the last couple hours or so, with some more convective development near the center of the storm. So, but my main point here was look at the 28 degrees Celsius temps. When Cristobal works its way right before landfall, I would not be surprised if we see a 5+ mile an hour increase, because Cristobal, why did it increase from a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm or a 45-mile-an-hour tropical storm to a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm in the span of, I think it was maybe 18, 24 hours? It was close to going, not rapid intensification almost, but pretty damn close to rapid intensification. And because look at those sea surface temperatures, they were 29 to 30 degrees Celsius in the just southwest of the Yucatan Peninsula at the time. And that was really helping fuel Cristobal, and really helping fuel its tropical development. But now it moved out. It moved into some very less favorable conditions with dry air. There was shear. There's no shear now. Not much shear to work with until it gets into landfall. And so that's why I think Cristobal is in very favorable environments to continue to develop over the next few days or so. And not the next few days, next 24 hours or so until it makes landfall. And we'll take a look here. I'm not really buying that Cat 1, but I'll buy. I don't think it's going to get more than 50, maybe 55 knots at the most, but I don't think we're looking at a Category 1 hurricane here. Most models are very not going. And you can see some models are decreasing the strength of Cristobal. That's when you kind of got to throw it out, the wind speed in knots, because they've already measured 50-mile-an-hour wind speeds. And if you're already going below that, then that's a little concerning. But GFS, Ensembles, all in agreement. Hard to tell, but there's probably a few oranges, sub 990s, and I think we're going to go sub 990 because GFS depicted a 996 millibar storm, and we are already below that. I'm going to shift back to tropical tidbits here now. go to the latest GFS run, and GFS. I mean, it's a 993 already. I think it's a 990 millibar storm in my opinion, because NOAA Aircraft Recon found that, but I guess they didn't buy it, and so be it. But it's already a 993 millibar storm or lower. Air Force, I don't know the differences that they're finding between a 6 hour time frame when they did their runs, but something must have changed. I don't know. But we'll zoom through GFS. So you gotta already take away 3 millibars because it's a 996. So go down, and GFS actually has it weakening before landfall, which I find bogus. I don't think that's gonna happen. So we're gonna throw this model out. We're gonna head to the icon just to see what it has, and we gotta subtract 3 millibars, but 992 millibars, so maybe a 989 millibar storm. My ideal pressure, I think, for this, it's going to be somewhere between a 986 at its lowest and somewhere around a 990, maybe a 991 millibar at landfall at its highest. So we're looking at potentially, I'm going to still say a 60 to 70 mile an hour tropical storm. I can't rule out that strengthening rate before landfall. I think is definitely possible, but unlikely, very unlikely that it hits 70 miles per hour. I think the 60 to 65 mile per hour range is more what we're talking about here for Cristobal. Some people are hesitant just because of the models to suggest that it'll even get to 60 miles an hour, but I'm pretty sure it's already at 55 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center, though, it's up to them to up the storm. Again, it's not up to the aircraft hunters. It's not up to NOAA and the Air Force to decide what the strength is. They go out and they collect data, and it's up to the National Hurricane Center to decide, has it really upgraded to a 55 mile an hour tropical storm. And you can debate over that all you want, but it's up to the National Hurricane Center to decide what that is. So I think it's closer to the 55 mile an hour range, but we'll leave it at 50 mile an hour tropical storm for now. And slide back, we'll go to HR. I don't think it's great in tropical stuff, but you can see it's picking up on those wind speeds 60 plus mile an hour. Once we get 50 plus knots, that's when we start talking about our 60 plus mile an hour tropical storm. When you start to see those purples there, and we start seeing a good amount of purples, I think HRR is depicting this beautifully, quite beautifully. Was it 2 millibars off from what the National Hurricane Center has provided us with? That's better than 996's, say, and 1 hour out 994. It's pretty close. Has it strengthening, as you can see, and then not as it's slowing down a little bit, has it making landfall maybe 20 hours out or so. Again, I always like to be a little hesitant with the HRR. You go farther out, you go more than 6 hours out even, sometimes the HRR has trouble, but I think it's depicting the right picture here, a 990 millibar. Again, once it makes landfall, probably 988, 999 millibar range somewhere, and providing wind speeds, 50, 52 to even 56 knots maybe, which is close to 65 mile an hour tropical storm, and I think that's about what we're talking about here. So HRR is my favorite so far. Not my favorite, I just believe it's the most accurate so far. I think this is depicting the best picture of what's going to happen. I just think it has a good grasp on it for sure. And we'll continue. We'll play with one more model. Actually, you know what? We'll just go to the preset from the HRR, and then we'll call it. We're not going to go into the National Hurricane Center details. If you want to know, I can tell it to you right now as I'll loop this out. It is a 50 mile an hour tropical storm moving around 12 to 13 miles an hour north. Pressure 993 millibars. And tropical storm wind field is very large and almost near the coastline. It's right about at the far coastline, about to get into Grand Isle. Over the next couple hours or so, it'll make its way into Grand Isle. So that's where we sit right now with the storm, but it's picking up the idea of the rain band that's going to move in. All the models have picked up on it, and that's the most concerning. This pushes a little bit more north than was thought. More north and east than was thought. I guess that's one thing to follow. Watch that as a trend, I guess. But tomorrow evening is gonna be a bad night if you live in southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi. Very bad. Tropical storm winds, gusts potentially 50 to 60, even 70 miles an hour. Gusts are definitely possible. Near hurricane force gusts cannot be ruled out with this storm as it approaches the coast tomorrow. Florida, again, you're going to get some more rainfall. HR depicts some of that rainfall, of course. Be mostly scattered throughout the day tomorrow, but you'll get it. You'll get it there. You picked up a lot of rainfall today, so I'd say some places in Florida could come close to 1.5 feet of rain, which is because there's been totals already reported of 12 plus inches of rain. So we'll continue to monitor this, but for now, we'll just about call it. Alabama, I know I haven't really talked about you, but if you could come pretty close to that rain band, if you get into it, that could be some serious rainfall totals. Depends on how large that band will be and where it exactly sets up. Once we start to see where it sets up, that's when we'll have a better idea what the heaviest rainfall totals would be. But I'd say Alabama, 3 to 6 inches isolated, 4 to 8 inches in some places. In southern Alabama, this is more of the coastline we're talking about. Same with Florida, I'd say 3 to 6 inches widespread is possible, not widespread, I guess, but 3 to 6 inches is definitely overnight. HR definitely picking up on that band that I was talking about. That's going to move its way. That's going to provide tropical storm force winds. And after that, just more bands of rain working its way through. So we're definitely talking 2 to 4 inches is most certainly what we're talking about for Florida, and then up to 6 inches possible along the Panhandle. Rainfall anywhere from 6 to 12 inches in southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi, and even far exterior southwest Alabama coast. 6 to 12 inches, and maybe some isolated 15-inch totals are not out of the question. Again, all depends on where that rain band sets up. Once we figure that out exactly, then we'll have a better idea of where the heaviest rainfall totals will set up. But for now, I think we'll call it. All right, so stay safe, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. Stay very safe. Arkansas, you're up next for that heavy rain in a couple days.